Top 5 post-Week 7 thoughts. I realize that this one may not have as many legs on YouTube, but look, I got to come up with a bunch of these, and this is just what I was thinking of this morning when I was doing the top 5. Number 5, Tez Walker makes UNC a contender. Not an ACC title contender. They're already that. But now, even with Drake May, who can slice up about anybody, he's that good of a quarterback. Now they've got a dude who can win on every single route. And you can see why, outside of the fact that an injustice was done to Tez Walker, that they were fighting so hard for him, because the dude can ball. He absolutely torched Miami for 3 touchdowns this weekend. He's a physical presence out there. He is an absolute perfect fit for the offense. They're running at North Carolina, and last year, Drake May had the last couple years, Drake May had Josh Downs. Now he's got Tez Walker, and he's finally got a true, and they've got their running back's really good. Everything's good about North Carolina. But Tez Walker is an X-factor player that when it comes down to, okay, say they do wind up playing Michigan in a college football playoff game, who can win on routes against Michigan? Tez Walker can win on routes against teams like Michigan.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that, but that was one of the games that we picked, and that was a great win for North Carolina, who's now 6-0 at the halfway point. But there was a good story on his debut last week, and was against Syracuse, right?
Yep.
And had a handful of catches, but it was like 43 yards or something, and that's fine. Like that's you're gonna have games like that, but just for all of the hoopla surrounding his return, it was just not really anything notable. But that was. Apparently a situation they had just given him like a set of plays, just kind of get your feet wet. And then he and Drake May had some meetings together, and they opened it up a lot more for this week. And we saw how well that worked. It worked really, really well for them. So, yeah, he changes that offense in a major way, changes that team's trajectory as well in a major way. Not sure he can do that every week, but, man, you add him with what Drake May's capable of doing, Hampton there at running back, and that's a fancy new weapon that you got right at the right time if you're the Tar Heels for sure.
Yeah,
Mac Brown and company are unbeaten.
Yeah, they're doing some really interesting things there in Chapel Hill. Number 4, how long is Brock Bowers out? Now, Georgia can overcome the loss of a star better than probably almost everybody in the country, but he's been the guy who's gotten them out of each and every jam they've been in this year, and he's not there now. So if he's gone for any kind of reasonable stretch of time, how does that affect their three-peat possibilities? Because, look, they probably don't have 2 losses on the schedule, but look, it's the SEC, and they've had scares from a 2-4 South Carolina team and a whatever, it's 2-4 Auburn, 2-4 Garrett as well.
I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah. Well, both bad teams. I mean, they're not good.
Auburn's 3-3.
Auburn's 3-3, but neither team is good. Auburn or South Carolina right now, and they've both put a charge right into Georgia. So if that happens again, and you don't have Brock Bowers to get out of that hole, they're not awash in stars like they were last year. They've got some really good players, but they don't maybe have the kind of guys that won them those last 2 titles. How does that affect Georgia going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a little bit of a coping of like, well, it's not that big of a deal that they're still loaded for Bear, and, Carson Beck will still find and have weapons and all that stuff, and that very well may be the case. But, man, I mean, talk about a bailout guy, a safety pin guy, like a linchpin, a safety net, I think is what I was actually trying to say, and a linchpin. He's a freak of nature and one of the best players in all of football, and it certainly will be a guy we're talking about in the NFL very, very soon as well. So I don't know how even the best team's not hurt by losing maybe the best player in the game, and or one of the best players in the game. So, yeah, they're going to miss him. To what extent, like you said, is the big question. And this remaining schedule, I mean, they've got 3 top 25 teams as it stands right now that are standing back to back to back, not starting this week, but starting in 2 weeks with, who is it? I was just looking at it a little while ago. They've got
Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee after Florida.
So Florida up first, though, and Florida, hey, who knows with the Gators? But yeah, then Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee on the road, and then Georgia Tech on the road to close it out. So there's a couple teams in there that could give you a problem if you're not on your A game. But yeah, that's a blow for Georgia without a doubt. Now, if anybody was built to overcome that, they'd be like first in line, right? One of like 5 teams maybe that you could say like they could overcome something along those lines. But, man, that's still a big loss.
He has 10 more catches than anybody else on the team. And then after that, it's more than twice as much. He has nearly twice as much yards receiving than anyone else on the team. and that also has scored 4 touchdowns, and nobody else has scored twice as far as the receiving core.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, USC has some soul searching to do.
Yes, they do.
They really do. That wasn't a close loss. That wasn't, oh man, if we don't have this little thing happen. No, they had a lot of bad things happen to them in succession. And Notre Dame was the better coach team straight up and down on Saturday night, and sent a message to to USC that we don't care who your quarterback is, we don't care what the hype is. You're in South Bend now, kids, and we're playing big boy football. And I was stunned that I wasn't stunned that Notre Dame won. I mean, they're a favorite in the game. I was stunned that USC played that poorly and that Notre Dame.
How much of that was Notre Dame forcing them? Yeah.
Notre Dame capitalized on every time USC showed a little bit of weakness, Notre Dame exploited it. And it is what I do think about Marcus Freeman as he's finding his sea legs as a head coach. Just remember, this is only his second year. I think you've seen his floor and you're starting to see where he's stepping up. If he gets the guys there at Notre Dame, he coaches a really good game. He calls a very good game. He's got everything kind of handled there. He is in the modern, kind of young, exciting coaches, one of those guys who can make a program that can get kind of dull like Notre Dame and old and traditional seem cool again. Now, look, he has to recruit in different waters because of the academic standards there. But if he makes Notre Dame cool again, then watch out because it looks like he's doing that and beating the reigning Heisman Trophy winner and the team that's supposed to be the captains of cool goes a long way in doing that.
Yeah, they dominated that game.
Yeah, somebody picked Notre Dame. Thank you for taking care of business. And I didn't expect it to be that lopsided, but that was a butt whooping. Audric Estime is a really fun player to watch and a real good weapon there for the Irish, combined with Sam Hartman. And their defense played really well. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing is, USC's defense, you expect them to give up some points or give up some plays or whatever. But the fact that Caleb Williams threw 3 picks, that they threw for less than 200 yards passing, that they barely ran for 100 yards on the ground. That's the most concerning thing was, you got beat badly, but it was your offense that really did not play very well at all. And as good as Notre Dame's defense might be, I mean, that's your bread and butter. So, very uncharacteristic performance from Caleb Williams and a bad showing overall for the Trojans. Still 6-1, still very much in control of things, and for the most part, not all the way anymore, but for the most part, and with some huge games looming where they could really make a lot of noise and do some damage to the Pac-12 standings. But, that one leaves you scratching your head a little bit about what's to come.
They dropped, too. They didn't just like their USC, so they went from 8 to 9 or 12 or 13. They fell all the way in one poll, I think, almost out of the top 20.
Because you've been waiting for it.
Yeah.
They've been skating on thin ice for a little while.
Yep. Absolutely. Think about if they had Arizona coming this week instead of a couple weeks ago with Noah Fafita on a roll, right? What would that game be like? Number 2, we haven't seen the last of Oregon. I think that they're going to reinsert themselves back into the conversation. They're going to be right there lurking around. Washington's going to, breathe easier because they got through them at least one time, but really, really hope that somebody comes up and gets them again because as great as that game was for Washington, I'm sure neither of them want to see each other again. That was an absolute just barnstormer. And people are on Dan Lanning for being too aggressive, but again, he's just in his second year as a head coach too, right? He's figuring it out. Sometimes gut plus analytics is the factor, not just gut, regardless of analytics. I think that's where he's got to go, and he'll figure those things out. And part of it was also, like I said in the show, if you missed it, I don't fault him for going for it because those plays, if they work, win the game for you, every single one of them. They've just got to call better plays when they do that. And part of that is also a very young offensive coordinator in Will Stein who needs to know that as well. So,
there's things that they could have done better, but, you lost by 3 on the road to a top 10 team. I understand the hand-wringing, but, Dan Lanning is going to be better as a head coach and learn and make better decisions, but I feel pretty okay about where they are, all things considered. I think that Oregon's, like you said, going to be just fine, and they'll be favored in probably every game remaining for them, and maybe we see them in Washington Part 2. I wouldn't be mad at that, just like I wouldn't be mad at Oklahoma, Texas Part 2 necessarily. So, I think that they're going to be A-okay. I was wondering about this, though. Well, a couple of things. One, Washington's receiving core is just so freaking nasty.
God.
And they lost a guy during the game.
Yeah.
They lost Jalen McMillan during the game.
Yeah, and he's very, very good. But, I mean, with Rome and Polk, I mean, they're just so filthy. But that had to be like one of the only matchups ever where the two quarterbacks, especially in a top 10 matchup, had NIX in their last names, right?
Yeah.
Penix and Nix. I would have to think so. I know that's so random, but I just thought about like, what are the odds of NIX and two last names playing each other, top 10 game, all that. But yeah, I mean, we could very well see this again, and I wouldn't be mad at that because Oregon can leave that game going, if Dan Lanning does some things differently or if just one little thing goes differently, we win this game.
Yep.
I mean, it was that close. So, yeah, this was a coin flip all the way, and it turned out to be very much that.
Number 1.
By the way, Polk, one of the receivers, is from Lufkin, from
Yes.
here in Texas.
Yes.
Jimbo's got a ticking clock. I don't know how fast it's ticking, but it's ticking. It could be another year, but I'm telling you after that, the clock has started ticking because now the proof is in the pudding because you've asked him to do something he didn't want to do, which was bring in Bobby Petrino, and that's worked out a little bit for them, but also he's still making the same kind of decisions that hamstring even Bobby Petrino. So I don't know. I think where FSU sits right now, we talked about it earlier, FSU, A&M sits right now, it's very strange because who do you go out and get? Because you're paying a $10 million coach. You kind of are who you are, so you're probably going to go get somebody who maybe he's not a $10 million coach, but is a $7 million coach. And is that guy the right fit for you? They really need, to call back to Phil Bennett about an hour ago, the Bob Stoops to come in and win with Jimbo's players like Bob Stoops did with John Blake's players. I'm not saying Bob Stoops specifically, but Bob Stoops came in, won a title with John Blake's players. They need that guy right now and then figure out the long term after that.
You think they're going to give the next guy just $7 million a year?
Yeah, that's the other. I mean, that would be their bargain,
But
right?
just go find the right coach, Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to rewind a little bit because I also want to make mention of that Washington-Oregon game of our buddy Will Nixon.
Yeah.
Got a carry in that game. We covered him at Midway. But you had a Nix, a Nixon, and a Penix.
Yeah.
That has to be a first, right?
Yeah.
3 last names different
Absolutely.
with NIX in it. Anyways, that's like a Jeopardy thing or something. But I thought that was kind of unique. But yeah, Jimbo, I don't know how you can't, at least admit that there is some ticking going on at this point. Like even the most positive, optimistic Ags out there have to think that, yeah, there's some ticking going on at this point. I just don't know, though, Paul. You just can't go buy championships.
No, you can't.
And they've tried to, and they haven't been successful at that. They've had measures of success, but, as far as getting over that hump, you can't just, write a check and hire just a certain coach who's done it before and expect that that's going to be the case. And so I don't know where they turn to now. I don't know if the answer is to go non-huge name head coach, or is that just too enticing that they got to have who's the next big name guy that they could potentially go and get? I know the money seems to never run out, so who knows? But I do think I'm with you on as far as A&M is supposed to be they're not supposed to be the big blank check school, even if they have it. They're supposed to be more of the country in the dirt ag school, right? And so this whole idea of basically just going and trying to buy a title has always kind of flown in the face of, I feel like, sort of what their ethos is in so many ways, right? And so I'm kind of with you that, they need more of a Bob Stoops before he became famous Bob Stoops, and somebody who's not like the big splash so that Twitter goes crazy, but the guy who maybe you don't get the big round of applause at the opening press conference, but damn it, you're going to be really, really good in a couple of years, and you're going to be surprising people, and he'll become the talk of college football. Not he already's been there, done that somewhere else. Now we're going to have him just come over here and do it here. No, somebody carve out their own mark. I mean, and at this point, that's really the only way they can turn, because they've done the alternatives now at this stage. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a pickle they find themselves in. They're better equipped to deal with it than a lot of other schools would be. But, yeah, it's a bit of a mess, and they only had themselves to blame with that Jimbo contract, but I know that's what they had to do to get him in the first place, but it has not worked out like they thought.
Go find somebody that fits and can, cultivate what you have and perhaps just in the, chipping away the hard way and winning. When you get to that point of winning, it's not just with a bunch of bells and whistles and perhaps with whatever.
Also, someone who's fun, man. Jimbo's getting a bit of a
Did I say this
buzzkill.
before? Tell me if I did. I watch his